Hi, my name is Hannah and welcome to my channel. Today is August 2nd, so I wanted to just film a quick wrap up for what I read in July. I normally write up my wrap ups each month on my blog, but I just wanted to try something different, try to just sit down, have a cup of tea, and talk to you about the books I've been reading this month. Okay, so the first book I read this month, or last month, was The Long Way Home by Louise Penny. This is the 10th book in the Armand Gamache mystery series that she's writing. This is the 10th book, and I don't even know how many are in the series right now. I know one is supposed to come out at the end of this year, but I'm not anywhere close to needing to get the newest book. I'm definitely taking my time through this series. It's very comforting sort of series, just like one of those series where you get so familiar with the characters and the town, and just every time you pick one up, it feels like coming home and being with friends. Especially in this series, we follow Chief Inspector Armand Gamache, the lead investigator for the Sûreté du Québec. So this series takes place in Quebec, and specifically in the town of Three Pines, which is the fictional town of Three Pines. Each book is just a new murder mystery, usually set in Three Pines. So this one I had really high expectations for. The last installment of the series, How the Light Gets In, I'm pretty sure was the title, was like my favorite of the series so far. It felt like a movie. There were twists and turns, and it just wrapped up so many of these overarching character arcs that had been building up throughout the whole series. And just the way the last book ended was like, it wrapped up everything really well and didn't really leave a lot of loose threads. I did really enjoy this one, so I gave The Long Way Home a 4.5 stars, and which is pretty impressive given how high my expectations were for it. So I can't really talk about specifics in this book since it is such a later installment in the series, but it does follow really familiar characters, some of the lead characters of the series, and the mystery surrounds them instead of, a peripheral sort of secondary character or conflict. And I thought it was done really well. Louise Penny always involves a lot of different aspects in her mysteries that make them so interesting, and I know I'm talking about this one very vaguely, just to not have spoilers, but really enjoyed it. I don't know when I'll pick up the next one, but again, I'm not in a hurry to finish the series or anything. It's just a nice thing to come back to every once in a while. So that was The Long Way Home by Louise Penny. The next book I read was Ready or Not by Cara, Bastone, I think is how you pronounce her name. So this is one of those cute rom-com books that's been making its rounds across the internet this summer, and of course it roped me in with the cute cover. I always pick these books up because they look so cute and people rave about them, but very often I'm left very disappointed by these books. But I picked up Ready or Not, and I was pleasantly surprised with it. I gave it 3 stars. Read it very quickly on my Kindle. What I liked about this book was that it had a very interesting premise, a little different than other rom-com books you see on the market. So this book starts out with our main character Eve, who finds out that she is pregnant from a one-night stand, and the story really goes off from there, with her dealing with the pregnancy, dealing with how she's gonna support a baby, dealing with the man who got her pregnant, and also finding love along the way. So I really appreciated that this book was a little different than other rom-coms that you see. This book, like, a lot of people don't like the pregnancy trope, so you don't see it very often, but Eve just has such a good attitude about the whole situation. Like, it's difficult, but she's like, okay, this is what we're doing now, and she just does what she needs to do, which I appreciated. Like, a lot of the leads in these rom-com sort of books just, like, annoy me, but Eve really did not. And then our male lead, Shep, who is her best friend's brother, he was also just a very genuine, nice guy, and watching them fall in love was very nice to read about. Wasn't annoying at all, didn't feel weird or uncomfortable in any way. So I enjoyed this book. I don't know if I will recommend it to a bunch of people, but for the summer, it's a nice, quick, fun read, and it was fine. It was what I wanted at the time. The next book I picked up was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This is a book that has gotten a lot of buzz over the past couple years since it's been published. It won the Pulitzer Prize, Oprah's Book Club, but I don't really care about those sort of things, but I really loved this book. Barbara Kingsolver took the classic Dickens novel David Copperfield and set it in modern day Appalachia, and talked a lot about addiction and how you can just, like, how you come of age in that sort of environment. So it's a very hard book to read. There are a lot of difficult things to read in this book, but it's also very funny too, just in the way it's written. It feels a lot like The Catcher in the Rye. It feels just that very blunt, dry sense of humor Demon has throughout the book, similar to Holden in The Catcher in the Rye, which I thought was very interesting, with combining like that David Copperfield story with the Catcher in the Rye feel too. But yeah, I thought this book was done really, really well. I loved it. There's so many lines that made me stop and reread and think about, and I really loved it. So that's Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. The next book I read was The Complete Stories of Flannery O'Connor. This book was a journey. I started reading it in April, so it's taken me a long time, which isn't a bad thing. It's good to take short story collections slow so you can really reflect on the individual stories. I had never read Flannery O'Connor before. She's an author that's been on my list for a long time. I've had this copy of her short stories for a long time, and I finally just decided to pick it up. and they were very different than what I expected them to be. I don't know what I expected, but I felt like I would have enjoyed these a lot more if I would have read them in a classroom setting with like a professor to guide me through it, because there are just so many like themes and character traits that just feel like it went way over my head a lot of the time. And a lot of the stories also had overlapping themes, and I was often just left like, I don't know, they were all like blurring together in my mind a lot of the time. But I do really appreciate her writing. She has a lot of commentary on race and religion, especially. She is a Southern writer in the early 1900s, like 1930s to 50s, I think. So growing up in the South, she has a lot of perspective and reflection on a lot of race issues, and it's definitely very prevalent in these short stories, and it could be a lot at times. I don't know how many stories are in this collection, but my favorites were The Crop, A Good Man is Hard to Find, The River, Good Country People, The Comforts of Home, and Parker's Back. Those were the stories that I marked specifically because they made me think. They sort of stood out from the rest of the bunch, and I really enjoyed them. I don't know if I would recommend reading this sort of collection sort of back, like cover to cover like I did, but I did overall enjoy the stories. I just wish I had a bit more guidance and perspective on the meaning behind them. And so the fifth and final book fifth and final book I read was Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. So I've read quite a few Fredrik Backman books. I've read A Man Called Uva, Beartown, and Us Against You. And I've had Anxious People on my list, but I've sort of been putting it off because people usually say that this one is kind of in the middle road of his works, like it's not his best work. So I was like kind of nervous to pick this one up, but I surprisingly really enjoyed it. It's definitely not up to the same standard as A Man Called Uva and Beartown. It doesn't deal with as hard-hitting topics, I don't think, but I really enjoyed it. So this book follows a hostage situation. There's a bank robber, and the bank robber, while he's escaping, ends up in an apartment showing with a bunch of prospective buyers, and it becomes a hostage situation. And in this hostage situation, all the people are forced to sort of reflect on their lives, talk about their struggles with each other. It sounds like a darker book than what it is, though. Like, Fredrik Backman has a lot of humor and wit to his writing, and the hostage situation is not scary or anything at all. The bank robber has like a whole backstory where you understand what's going on, so you aren't like fearful for anyone's life. But I don't know, I really enjoyed how it was all constructed with the characters and so many good lines. Backman's writing is always just amazing, makes you think. And yeah, I did really enjoy this book a lot more than I was expecting to, and it surprised me. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. yeah, it's one I would definitely recommend, and Fredrik Backman will continue to be an author I return to. Alright, so those are all the books I read in July. I'm so excited for August and fall reading. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, something about the fall, it just like puts such a relief. And the types of books I like to read in the fall too are usually some of my favorites, so I'm really excited to get started reading this month and to talk about the books that I finish with you. So definitely let me know in a comment what books you read, what is your favorite book from July, what would you recommend to me for the fall. I'd love to hear all about it. Yeah, I will see you again very soon. Bye.